Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Renee and I am a good enough mom. Each week I put out a video about tips and tricks to make my life simpler and easier, and at the moment I'm busy talking about money. I find that when I'm not stressed about money, then my life is definitely simpler and easier. In my last video I shared some tips and tricks about how to save money around the home, and in this video I'm going to share some more. Now some of these things you might have been doing for years and years, and that is great, and then you can just skip on to the next section and see if the next tip might help you. Some of these things might be things that you know you should be doing, but you've just gotten out of the habit of doing them, and this is just a reminder to remember to start doing them again and get back into the habit of saving money. Some of these things might be things that you've never thought of before and are completely new to you. But if you think about it, then you think it is really something that can be quite easily incorporated in your life. So I encourage you to give it a try and you might be able to save a few bucks in the long run. And lastly, maybe you look at something that we do and think, absolutely not. I am not prepared to try and save money by doing something like that. And that's fine as well. Each person's needs and wants and lifestyle and situation is different. Something that is possible for us might be completely impossible for you. And also, maybe it might be impossible at the moment, but at some time in the future, it might be something that you'd be prepared to look into. But what is really important is looking at how you're currently spending your money and deciding whether or not you want to continue spending your money on these things in the future. So let's dive into the tips for today.
Our family eats a lot of fruit, and it sometimes happens that we don't eat as much as I was expecting. And although it would be great if the kids would choose the most ripe fruit each time that was no longer perfect, we all tend to choose the fruit that looks the best. And so the ripe fruit tends to get riper. When this happens, I try to cut up and freeze the fruits that are almost overripe. They are usually the sweetest at that time anyway, and we use them in our smoothies and fruit ice creams. This really helps us not to waste fruit and throw money into the bin. The general culture where I live is that if you need to go anywhere, you jump into the car and go. It can literally be around the block, but most people would still get into the car to go. So as far as time allows, if I need to go somewhere that is less than a 10-minute walk away, I try to plan my time so that I can walk. This means that my children generally walk to school. It also means that I'm generally able to walk to the shops for most little things. The added bonus is that I seldom purchase anything compulsively because it'll mean I have to carry it home. It also means I get a little bit of extra exercise in on most days.
Over the years, we've started buying more and more of our clothes second-hand. And although they do come from a charity shop or a second-hand shop, many of these clothes are reasonably new. I'm sure you've bought clothes before that just haven't sat quite right. Perhaps you bought them at a sale and when you got home you regretted the purchase. Perhaps you put a lot of thought into the purchase, but it just didn't work out the way you were expecting it to. Perhaps you had to buy an item for a once-off event and just found that you've never really used it again. Or maybe you got a gift and it was something that's just not really your style and you can't see yourself wearing it in the future. And then you've either donated it to a charity shop or you've sold it to a second-hand shop. Well, this happens to other people too. So it happens very often that the clothes in charity shops and second-hand shops have actually hardly been worn. It's happened time after time to me that I find clothes at charity shops and second-hand stores that fit me or my children or my husband just perfectly at the fraction of the cost that would have cost me if I'd bought them new. There's also another advantage. One of my children is quite sensory sensitive and they don't like wearing new clothes because it feels funny. So for that child, buying second-hand clothes works like a dream because it no longer feels new, it feels worn in. So for a child with tactile defensiveness, I really encourage you to go buy second-hand clothes, because then someone else has worn in the clothes for your child already, and they don't need to struggle with that new clothes feeling. So that is definitely an added advantage. When making mince, I usually add some browned lentils just after browning the meat. This makes the mince go a lot further, and my family barely notice it at all.
Use up every last drop from bottles. Even when a bottle is finished, there is usually a little left inside. And if you can get that one more serving out or one more use out, then that is one less serving or use that you need to pay for. With spray bottles and bottles with dispensing pumps like suntan lotion, if the lid can screw off, I would usually do that to get the last bit out. But if it can't screw off, then I cut open the bottom, and you would be surprised at how much of the product is still inside, even when you think the bottle is empty. When I cut open the suntan lotion bottle, I was able to put suntan lotion on all 6 of our family members.
When there's only a little bit of sauce left in the bottles, I add a little water. Give it a good shake and add it to our meal.
With regards to sauces like ketchup or chutney, I usually add a little water into the bottle and shake it. Then I add this to the recipes that call for the water and that sauce to be added, for example stews or mince. With things like mayonnaise or cream, I add a little milk and do the same. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. So now for the real deal.
As a stay-at-home mom, sometimes I get this nagging feeling that I need to justify why I choose not to work for money. Now I know that I don't really have to justify myself to anybody else, and that this is completely my own decision. But when I get this feeling, it sometimes helps to sit down and write down all the things that I do to save our family some money. Some of these things are really big things like childcare and home cleaning services and maintenance and things like that. But then there's also all the small everyday things like cooking from scratch and the things mentioned in a video like this. Added to that, all the additional expenses I would have had if I was working. Extra transport, more professional looking clothes, communication devices, and things like that I would have needed if I was working. After doing this, I've realized over and over again that I do work very hard at home, and if I were paid for each thing that I did, I'd be earning a pretty decent salary. And although I might not get a salary check at the end of the month, I do get it in decreased expenses that our family has. And the added bonus is that I don't need to pay tax on my salary. So it is a double win in that way. Obviously, not everyone can be a stay-at-home mom. If you're a single parent, or if your partner's salary can't cover your basic living expenses, it might not be possible for you. But if it is something that you've been wondering about, then I encourage you to sit down and work out all the expenses that you were to save if you were to stop working and to be more at home and do things that you're paying someone else to do. You might find out that at the end of the day, it makes more financial sense for you to be at home than for you to be earning a salary at work. Personally, for me, even though I'm a professional person with a master's degree, financially it makes more sense for me to be at home with the children than for me to earn a salary. Isn't that amazing? And obviously I also think that it's of great benefit to my children to have a mom that is not completely stressed out all the time and is there for them at home. So this is just some food for thought if you have been wondering about it. Thank you so much for joining me, and join me again next week. Bye!